wondering how I got into this mix.
All right, and we're back here on 90.1 KPFT Houston, Houston's only commercial-free, corporate-free community radio. And we've been talking about 5G, fifth generation technology, cellular technology, the Internet of Things, and how that is affecting Houston and what's going on here in Houston. To hear more specifically about security and privacy concerns, we are talking with Matt Cagle, who is an attorney with the ACLU of Northern California. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So we're interested in this topic as I've just been explaining to the audience. We've been discussing what's going on in Houston. There's a kind of a push towards more infrastructure, and the mayor really promoting all the positive aspects of the Internet of Things, saying that we'll have robot assistants in the city and autonomous vehicles and better traffic and things of this sort. But some city council members have been made aware. Various people in the city have started an activist group called Houstonians Concerned with 5G and kind of, I think, the Internet of Things more largely, and have visited city council, and they mentioned an ACLU report that was written by the ACLU that you're affiliated with, discussing how to prevent smart cities from turning into surveillance cities. And that's kind of what we're dealing here with as Houston, the fourth largest city in the country, and other cities move towards being smart cities and on the smart grid. There are a number of privacy concerns that have come about. And so I'd love to get your take on this whole situation and what it means for the people of Houston.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think as a background issue, it's really important to remember that when we talk about smart city technology or the Internet of Things in the government context, that what we're really talking about is electronics that are maybe small and cheap that can be placed around the city, and that essentially can be designed to collect information, whether it's visual information or audio information or information about, say, whether a parking space is occupied. But before any smart city technology is acquired or deployed, it's really important that a city working with its community determine whether that technology is actually smart for the city to do. Why do we say that? Well, that's because, smart city technology can be a wolf in sheep's clothing. It can be another way for the government to amass information that it may not have wanted to collect for law enforcement purposes, but that might be vulnerable to that sort of use later, or that they may not have wanted to collect for immigration purposes, but that could potentially be vulnerable to that later. And again, this technology is often going to be collected by technologies that companies have developed. And so it's really important for the city and the community to be on the same page about who's going to own this data if we go forward with this project, who's going to be able to sell this data, and at the end of the day, are communities in control of these technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you hit on a few different points there that I want to explore a little bit further. So first, let's get a little bit deeper in the explanation of what exactly the Internet of Things is, as far as the coming, what some say, tens and thousands of more interconnected devices. Can you give us a clearer definition of what the Internet of Things is and how that relates to these various data that you're discussing?
Right. So as technology is developed and sensors and technology have grown more advanced, it's become easier and easier to put sensors and communication technology in everything from a street lamp to a parking space under the road. And so what the Internet of Things generally refers to is a sort of world of devices that could be connected through internet or cellular connections, and that can communicate easily in ways that, before the Internet of Things, it was our cell phones and it was radio towers and it was our computers at home that would be connecting and communicating over the internet. But now, with the dropping price of sensors and the sort of growing sophistication of technology, it's possible to, connect lots of other devices that we've used for a long time to the internet, whether it's, again, city and government devices like street lamps and parking spaces, or, our toaster at home or our microwave at home. So this is about adding connectivity and about adding sort of data flows to devices and things that we're all already very familiar with.
So to bring it a little bit closer to home, we're just a couple of weeks out from the Christmas season, and I'm sure some people listening have come home with or received gifts in the form of, say, a Google Nest or a Alexa or Echo and all these various devices that are becoming more normalized in the smart homes of the future. Each of those devices then is vulnerable. Is that correct?
They're not necessarily vulnerable, but those are Internet of Things devices. I think it's really important to that before we, take an Alexa speaker and we place it in our home, or before we take maybe a speaker or a sensor from a company who we're less familiar with in Amazon and place it in our homes, that we're being explained by these companies what these devices are collecting and how the information is going to be used. I think it's not often clear how a company like Google or Amazon is going to use our data, in the same way that it's not completely clear how Facebook will use our data. So, these companies really have an obligation when they're asking people to put devices in their homes to explain fully how that information is going to be used. In the same way, when a company comes to a city government and they say, hey, we want you to connect your city with the Internet of Things, that company has an obligation to explain to residents what exactly they're going to collect and what their plans are for using it. And it's incumbent on policymakers to make sure, if they move forward, if the community wants to move forward with adding connectivity, that they ask hard questions and place real limits on what these companies can do with the data.
As we move towards the Internet of Things, one of the key components here is the 5G fifth generation cellular technology that we're kind of seeing the beginning of, and more infrastructure laid down. Here in Houston, the city has partnered with Verizon, and a couple months back they announced the world's first 5G customer here in Houston, and they kind of had a big press event making a big thing about it. And the mayor has been awarded the 5G Wireless Award, Champion Award by the basically the telecom industry, the CTIA, for removing all restrictions and for they said for speeding up the permitting process to bring in the 5G technology, which will allow the Internet of Things. And that's why we're talking about this, is as people start to consider not only the devices, as you said, like we were talking about Amazon and the kind of things we buy and place in our homes ourselves, but also how, as the city installs infrastructure, you mentioned being able to put sensors and things in the lights, the smart lights. We've also got some cities that have had the gunshot detectors and various things that are put in there for either convenience or to improve traffic, they say, and these kinds of things, but that also have this privacy risk along with that. What would you recommend to Houstonians who are hearing these things and seeing what's going on, the direction the city's moving, as far as getting their voices heard and expressing their concerns?
Yeah, it's really important that policymakers in any city that's looking at smart city technology and the networks that will power that technology, it's important that the policymakers and elected representatives hold community meetings, create opportunities to explain these technologies fully to the public, and explain to the public, alongside any potential corporate partners, how the data is going to be collected, what will be collected, what it's going to be used for, and what is the real purpose of adding connectivity to a city. I think it's often the case that policymakers hear pitches from corporate partners or corporate entities who are trying to sell them on these technologies. And it's really important to ask, will this actually further a community goal, or will it create a vulnerable database that won't actually help solve the problems that we have in our city or in our community? It's important that policymakers don't blindly walk into smart city initiatives that may not be good for the community in the long term. And so as a first step, the ACLU recommends having community discussions and disclosing as much information about these partnerships as possible, so that the community and policymakers understand what exactly the plans are and what the sort of obligations are for the company to protect residents' data and the city to protect residents' data.
I'm sorry to say, Matt, that that's just not what we have seen here in Houston. That one of the big concerns that's been made here recently at city council meetings in the past couple months, as Houstonians become more aware of this, is the fact that there was never a vote held on, how this should take place, or whether Houstonians even wanted it, let alone there hasn't been any comment period, or as far as we know, there hasn't been any kind of environmental impacts studies and things of this sort. So there are a number of concerns ranging from the health to the people who are concerned about their property rights as far as how close various infrastructure might be built to where they live and to various businesses, as well as these privacy concerns. And the only responses that I've seen take place at City Council has been a short statement from the mayor that included the following: "I love 5G." So it's unfortunate that so far we've got a couple of council members who've expressed some interest in kind of encouragement to local activists to keep coming and trying to spread awareness. But we wanted to shine a light on this aspect because while many people are excited about the technology, and of course the things that are mentioned are these autonomous vehicles, and the city expresses a lot of pride that we get to be the first in the country. We're doing this before New York and before Chicago and these kinds of things. And we have this concern and this worry that these things are being rushed forward with that excitement and with that pride and that desire for new technology, but without all these important questions being asked that you've brought to our attention.
That's really interesting. I mean, like I said, smart city technology is just a tool, but a tool isn't effective if it's not put to a meaningful purpose and it's not understood fully. And so it's really important that in any community, before a smart city project goes forward, that there's a discussion about all of the information that is part of the deal, the potential deal, how the information is going to be collected, and how community members' information is going to be protected, both from corporate misuse but also from governmental misuse. And so we always encourage elected leaders to bring these issues before the city council or the board of supervisors for a full vote to approve or to deny these sorts of projects before they go forward, so that the political process is part of this and that community members have a chance to speak up.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of been the goal of some locals here who are bringing attention to this. On that issue, have you seen any cities or localities, whether it's on the county level or even on the state level, where there has been successful, communication and dialogue between community members and city officials or, government officials in general?
We've seen a few cities in the Bay Area be really proactive about these issues and actually pass legislation that reaches both smart city technology, but also surveillance technology generally, surveillance technology that might be used for law enforcement. So a number of Bay Area cities have actually passed ordinances that require transparency, accountability, and oversight every time a technology that could be used for surveillance is being proposed for acquisition. And what this allows is for community members to learn about these things before they're collecting information about their private lives on city streets or in public parks, and to make sure that the policymakers and elected leaders know what is being proposed by city agencies and have an opportunity to ask hard questions. So there are models for legislation that communities could follow that allow everyone to have a clear-eyed debate about whether, not just how, smart city technology is the way to go.
Thank you for that information. We'll definitely try to get more people to become aware of this information, because it does seem to be an issue that is going to be important in the coming year. Houston's got a mayoral race coming up this year, so likely these issues will be a part of that race, and we appreciate that. We've been talking with Matt Cagle. He's an attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union in Northern California. Thank you for your time, Matt.
Thank you.